Hey everybody, welcome back. I didn't think I'd be back here this quickly. I know I just said yesterday or the day before when I made my last video that I was going to try to get back into doing some more content, but honestly I didn't think I would be doing a new video the very next day. But as it happened, a really cool thing happened to me today, and I just wanted to document it for everybody. And it was interesting because I actually broke two of my own rules that I set for myself, but just goes to show that sometimes rules are meant to be broken. And just because you have rules that you set for yourself that might be good most of the time doesn't mean that they're always applicable all the time. And today, I made nearly 550 bucks on an Apple short, trading only 3 contracts. And so obviously this was a really good trade. I just saw a thing developing, which I'm going to go into in a second when I go onto my screen capture, and we'll look at the charts and you can see exactly what I saw. But long story short, when I woke up this morning, the first thing I read before the markets opened up, about 10 minutes before the markets opened up, was DOJ is opening a huge antitrust lawsuit against Apple. And then the very next thing I did was look at Apple, where it was at that moment on the charts. I put a few pieces of information together and I said, Apple is going to fall like a rock today. And that's exactly what it did. And I capitalized on that fact. So the first rule that I broke was I got involved right away. I know that a lot of times I'll say, give it 15, 20 minutes to kind of set up before you do anything. I jumped in the first minute after we opened up this morning. So that was my first rule that I broke. Second rule that I broke was I usually follow the idea of never trading the news. But this leads us to a fairly interesting observation. There's a difference between punditry and actual news. So I suppose I should make that further clarification. I don't ever listen to pundits being like the talking head people on TV saying, well, I think this is going to happen, or I think this might happen, or that might happen. That's just a bad idea to listen or to put too much stock into what those people say. But there's punditry and then there's actual news. And so when you read a headline like DOJ is going to hit Apple for an antitrust lawsuit, that's a straight up factual headline. That's not just some person's prediction of what's going to happen. That's actual news. The same way that, when a certain company will miss their revenue earnings on a revenue call, that's actual news. That's not just somebody saying, I think so-and-so is going to miss their earnings or beat their earnings. That's actual factual information. So you need to be able to differentiate between pundits having an opinion and actual news. But yeah, all of that leads us to right now. It's the end of the day on Thursday. It's the 21st today. And I traded just 3 contracts, only 3, made a nearly 60% P&L and $550 on the day, all because I saw some things developing and I just paid attention. And just proves that you can do this every single day and it's not really all that hard. And now let's get into the screen share and I'll show you exactly what I saw and why I traded it the way that I did. Okay, so first let's take a look at my screenshot from my P&L. You can see I made 57.79% P&L on the day, and you see $547 profit on Apple, and that was due to 3 put contracts that I bought this morning in the first minute of the day. So let's take a look. Now we're looking at the really far zoomed out version. Over here on the left, you can see this was yesterday. Interestingly enough, yesterday I made a little bit of money on a long position that I had. You can see this text window over here. It says closed call here. I got in down here at the beginning of the day when price broke up above the 200, and I basically just rode it all the way up to here, and I figured I'm not going to push my luck too much further because I had these really strong pushes up right here. But the thing we're talking about is today. So let's take a look at this light gray area in the middle of the screen here. This is overnight. You can see we gapped down overnight. And your first reaction might be, well, a lot of times in the morning, you're going to fill the gap. So whether you gap up or down, you will frequently fill the gap at some point throughout the day. And that's usually my first thought of what might happen. So if you're thinking about it like that, you'd be thinking, okay, well, you're going to go long because you're going to bounce off this 200 and you're going to fill this gap. But if we actually zoom in to right at the beginning of the day here. So I'm on the 1 minute candle. You can see right here about 8:20, 8:25, right about here is when I read a headline, and the exact headline was DOJ reportedly will file antitrust lawsuit versus Apple as soon as Thursday. So I read this headline like 5 or 10 minutes before the market opened, and I took a look at where we were in relation to this 200 EMA, and then of course, I took a look at the daily chart. So the daily chart, now this right here is today. This was yesterday. And, one thing that I was looking at was, all right, well, yesterday was a very, very big green day. And yeah, of course you can have multiple huge green days, just like you can have multiple huge red days. But when I put together the information that, this DOJ lawsuit potentially happening today, and the fact that yesterday was such a strong day, and the fact that on the daily we were below the 200 and the 50 EMA, sort of getting ready to bounce up, off of it, even if all of the sentiment was like tailwinds and it was looking like it was going to, it should propel it through this right here, with the DOJ thing, this is like a brick wall of resistance right now. So then when I went back to the 1 minute, pretty much as soon as the market opened up at 8:30, I got 3 contracts right away. I saw that it was kind of wildly fluctuating up and down, and I got 3 separate entries during the first minute of the day, because I figured that we were going to really just fall out either immediately, or I thought there might be a slight retracement and then we would fall out once things kind of settled. And the second option is what happened. We didn't fall out immediately. We came up, popped up a little bit, got the high of the day right at about 8:38 for me. The reason that I didn't freak out when it was over here, even though I got in right here, is this line right here. This was the high of pre-market. So this red line here, this is the level that I was looking for. So if we had broken through this level with any sort of strength and continued to rise, this is the point where I would have stopped out for a loss at that moment. But we didn't. We came back down and then we just fell. And so now you'll see that I have just put up a screenshot of my detailed entries and exits for the day. You can see what I was just saying. I've got 3 opens here right at 8:30. So this is right here on this very first kind of doji looking candle of the morning. I opened up 3 positions. I got one at 1:30, one at 1:22, and one at 1:15. So I kind of averaged out my price for those first 3 openings that I got. And you can see my first sale of one contract was here at 8:47. So basically right here is where I closed out my first contract. Obviously, in hindsight, you'll say, well, if you had just held everything all the way to the bottom, you would have made a lot more money. Yeah, of course, I totally would have made a lot more money if I had done that. But the point is, when you're trading just a few contracts, the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you lock in a little bit of profit and guarantee yourself a win. Because, as we know, it's easy enough for a pattern to develop like a double bottom. Right here, this could have easily been the beginning of a double bottom developing, and we may have, pushed up again higher, and, who knows what would have happened here. Now, my thought all along was that we were going to fall out really hard today, which we did, but that doesn't change the fact that you want to lock in a little something just to make sure that you're preserving your capital, because, the most important thing to do is make sure that you're always out in front of your trades and you're always ahead. So, my thinking was, I've already made a little profit on this first contract right here. I'm going to lock in some of my profit, and then I'm going to keep my other 2 contracts open until I see, a lot more considerable movement. So then if we fast forward to 9:04, 9:04 is right here. So I closed my second contract right here. The reason for this is that we had just had this really nice large red candle here. So I closed out another one. Again, thinking, I think that it's going to continue to fall. And for the last one, I'm really just going to let it all hang out. But again, I wanted to lock in a second little bit of profit with, even more gains at this point, which is what I did. And then the third contract all the way at 12:34 p.m. for me at a whopping 5:51. So we got to fast forward all the way. Let me move this over here. 12:34. So, so basically, my last contract, I closed out right here. And the reason that I closed this one out is that at that point, we had seen a considerable plateau happening. And so we had basically fallen for the majority of, the huge move that we had on the day, and then it just kind of plateaued. It did drop out once more. So if I had held it open longer, I would have made even more money. But again, another thing to think of is that this expiry is tomorrow. And so, the closer that you get to your actual expiry, the more time value is hitting you. And I didn't want, the time decay to continue to eat into my profits. So, as it stands, I would have gained a little more having waited a little bit longer for it to fall out even harder. But if it had just continued to just kind of go directly sideways or even come up and retrace a little bit past the 200, which it looked like it was on its way to doing, because you can see as time passes, we're getting closer and closer to this 200 here before we actually fell out right here at 1246. So I was just kind of, I was done waiting for the additional fallout and thought, okay, I caught a huge move from here all the way down to right here, and I peeled out a couple of times along the way. And, your trades can always be more perfect than they are, but that's not the big story. The big story is trading 3 contracts and making nearly $550 and nearly 60% P&L on the day. And remember, the majority of the work, quote unquote work, that I did for this was in the first half hour of the day, because after I closed my second contract at 9:04, I just left and did other things, and I had my alerts on. And so every time an alert would go off telling me that I had, surpassed my previous level on Apple today, I would check it. I would, look at some things, and I'd say, no, I'm going to keep letting it go. And then when I checked in again finally at 12:34, I said, I'm tired of waiting it out. I'm just going to close out my final contract. But the only actual focused work that I needed to do today in regards to, actively looking at the screen and paying attention to the screen happened in the first half hour of the day. So I essentially made $550 in 30 minutes today. And this was not very hard to do. So there you have it. Nearly $550 on the day with just 3 contracts traded. And nearly anybody can trade this way. Doesn't matter if you have a gigantic account or you've only got $1,000 or less in your account. You can trade the same way that I traded today. So if you like what you're seeing here, make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button. Like I was saying in my last video, I have my new complete options day trading course online now. If you want to get it, just go to lonewolftradingclub.com. You can see the course there, and I'm still extending the same offer that I was making in my last video, which is until I believe the 26th, next Tuesday. If you want to get 50% off the course, just send me an email to lonewolftradingclub@gmail.com and request the 50% off, and I'll send you the coupon. Until next time, happy trading. Hope you're all doing well, and see you soon.